So we will continue with the airline industry. We started in the previous module, we discussed about air transportation, the introductory parts. Today we'll be having a discussion about airline industry in more detail. We know what is an airline. Airline is it's a commercial organization. It is the most important element and the most visible player in the aviation sector. It is involved in the commercial transport services for the public. They undertake services for the people as well as for the cargo. It is now one of the largest industries serving billions of customers annually. Approximately 3.7 billion passengers use the services of commercial airlines every year. The number may increase or decrease. Because of Corona, the number may be less. The number is much less now. Until last year, it has been growing consistently. It is expected to continue its growth in the years to come as well. So the purpose, the basic function of airline is to provide the services of transportation for the passengers, cargo and baggage from one point to another for a set of prices. So that is the reason we call it as a commercial organization. Airline and tourism has a lot of importance. Both are interconnected. Tourism has so much of dependency on airlines for its survival. Particularly in the international tourism, they are depending very much on airlines for the survival. Any issue in the airline industry can seriously affect the tourism industry world over. It is certainly, as per the latest statistics of World Tourism Organizations, international tourists, they prefer to use air transportation for reaching the destination and to return to their place. So they have a very important role in the tourism world over. Apart from commercial airlines, with the regular services, tourism is benefited by the services of non-regular airlines as well. For example, charter airlines. Charter airlines have a lot of significance in tourism. Large-scale tour operators make use of charter services. They depend on charter airlines for the conduct of package holidays, even in the long-haul routes. Some of the regular scheduled airlines have own charter services as well. So airlines, even if it is a full service carrier or low-cost carrier, if it is a major airline, they may be having some of the operators, they will be having their own charter airlines as well. There are some other companies, they have only charter airlines. Of late, both business travel as well as leisure travel depends on scheduled airline services greatly. Charter airlines had a history, particularly during the 1950s and 60s and 70s. Package tourism, international tourism depended too much on charter airlines. Later on, commercial transportation began more affordable, particularly after the deregulation. The deregulation we discussed in the previous module. The deregulation, that was the beginning of privatization in airline industry, that was begun in USA and it continued into other regions of the world, and that became very significant in air transportation, and other places also started to have air transportation as a serious mode of transport, important mode of transportation. So tourism got greatly benefited by air transportation, and the changes happened in airlines was a prime reason in the case of the affordability of air transportation as well as in the case of its spread across the world. It has become a global industry. Efficiency of airline operation, particularly its punctuality of services and its quality, is very relevant in the case of tourism. So airlines and tourism do have so much of importance. They are interconnected, interrelated, and they are mutually complementary in nature. They have a symbiotic relationship. If there is an issue in one sector, the other sector will also be affected. If one sector is increasing, certainly it will be having its own waves in the other sector as well. So this kind of relationship is existing between tourism and airline industry. We nowadays call airline as an industry. Why we call it as an industry? We need to look at it. Airline represents an organization. It's a commercial organization. It's a business organization. But airline altogether can be called as an industry. Then we have to think why we call it as an industry. An industry, we know that according to definitions, according to the concept of industry, an industry consists of a number of competing firms that are having similar products. And airlines too form an industry because they provide services for people who intend to travel or send consignments from one place to another in air mode of transport in an efficient manner. That is the reason we call it as an industry. So airlines, the products are almost similar and they are having same kind of similar characteristics. Many of the characteristics are same. So we call it as an industry. Airline industry is an industry which consists of a vast network of routes that connect cities in different parts of the country or even the world. That is why we call it as a global industry, because this industry has operations across the world, every nook and corner of the world, and it's conducting services over the network of a large number of airlines. They carry passengers and cargo on scheduled services. There are unscheduled services as well. Now let us understand the characteristics of airline industry in general. We know that airline industry is a service industry. So you may understand, you may ask me, what is service industry? Service industry is something, they have the product which are having the characteristics like intangibility, inseparability, perishability, etc. Intangibility means the products are in fact untouchable, cannot be seen. In fact, those products have to be felt, to be experienced. Tourism, transportation, etc. are intangible products because we are not selling, we are not consuming any physical product. We are just having an experience. In the airline industry, the experience connected to intangibility is being transported from one place to another. That is why we call it as an intangible industry. We cannot see a physical product in airline industry. Rather, we get a kind of experience. We can a kind of feel of moving from one place to another. Inseparability means the consumer is part of the production system. If the consumer is absent, the production is not taking place. So, in order to produce the product, the consumer has to reach to the place where the product is going to be generated. So once the consumer reaches, the product will be generated. So the production and consumption cannot be separated. The consumer cannot be separated from the production system. That is why we call it as inseparable product. So for airline industry, if it is inseparable because the passenger has to reach to the airport to consume the product, then only that product is generated. And it is perishable as well. If there is a service on today, then if you want to consume it, it has to be consumed today itself. Tomorrow, another product is being sold. So today's product cannot be sold tomorrow. We cannot maintain, we cannot store this product for a future sale. That is why we call it as perishable. Perishable represent, it is dying very fast. The product will be extinct. Product will be losing its period of usage after some time. It has a time constraint. It's a time bound one. Then airline industry is having lot of high barriers. Barriers of entry is very high. Barriers of exit is also very high. A barrier of entry means if you want to start a new business, you have to pass through so much of difficulties. There are lot of hindrances, lot of difficulties to start a new business. At the same time, it is also difficult for an airline industry to exit from the business. We know the case of Kingfisher Airline, Jet Airways and all. Still the exit is not complete because there are so many procedures to be completed. So many difficulties are there even for exiting from the business. Many other sectors, if you don't want to continue the business, you can close it immediately. You may have to clear all the debts and other things. That is a different issue. But other kind of difficulties and problems are not there. And if barriers of entry is there, then the difficulties, the hindrances to start the business is so much. For starting an airline business, you need to have lot of licenses, lot of certificates, lot of income requirement is there, capital intensive industry, so many things are there. As I said, airline is a capital intensive sector. Lot of investment is required. If you want to purchase one aircraft, you need thousands of crores of rupees. So with one aircraft, you cannot start a business. You need to have lot of other infrastructure as well. So asset requirement is so high in the case of airline industry. It is highly capital intensive. So it is not easy for the people to start business. Moreover, it's a high cash flow sector. Every day the money requirement for running the operations is also very high. It's a high cash flow sector. So for a common businessman, it is not easy to start an airline business. Then airline business is following dynamic pricing nowadays. We know that if you want to book a flight ticket, when we search for the price of the seat, we will come to know that today morning the price may be one, in the afternoon the price may be different, in the night again the price may be different. So the prices will be varying. A dynamism can be observed in the case of pricing. So it's a kind of principle they follow, and they follow this principle with the help of revenue management practices. So dynamic pricing strategy is followed by airline industry. Their profit is depending upon this dynamic pricing strategy. Airline is a oligopolistic sector. Oligopolistic. There are two terms quite often we use. One is monopoly and the other one is oligopoly. When a market is having monopoly, it means there is only one player. They are dominating. They are the only player. They are there. Because once upon a time in Indian Indian air transport sector, we had only Air India, and in the domestic sector we had only Indian Airlines. So that time it was monopolistic. Now there are few companies, they are dominating the market. That is why we call it as oligopolistic. So airline sector is a oligopolistic sector. Another important thing is that airline sector is highly regulated sector. No other sector is having this much of control by the authorities and other kind of agencies. Lot of licenses are required. Frequent monitoring is there. You need to adhere to so many rules and regulations at the national level, international level. So regulations, in order to control, basically all these regulations are done for the smooth and safe and very careful with lot of security measures. They are undertaking all these for these purposes. Airline is a labor intensive sector because so much of employment opportunities are there. The requirement for people to undertake services in the airline sector is very high. They need employees at the airport, they need employees within the flight, they need employees within the office, everywhere they need employees. So number of employees requirement is very high. So that is why we call it as a labor intensive sector. Moreover, regarding the expenses, two things are very important. The cost for maintaining labor, the employees, is so high. The salary for every employee is really high. Moreover, the fuel expenses, it is also very high. So these two are the dominant cost elements in the cost of airline businesses. It's a highly competitive sector. Airlines are facing a lot of competition. One airline is having stiff, very difficult competition, very high competition with other airlines. Even if it is oligopoly, only few airlines are there. Lot of competition is there, intense competition is there within the market. Moreover, airline sector is having another very important feature. It is called thin profit margin. The profit level that is for airline sector is so less. We cannot make that much of profit. That is why many of the airlines are closing their businesses in between. So profit margin is very small. So that is a big problem for the company. World over, it's a major issue. It's not in India, but across the world, everywhere, it's a major issue. That is the reason many airlines are closing, and lot of consolidation is taking place. Mergers, takeover, acquisition, everything is taking place. Moreover, government control, government regulations are close, government regulations are there. And also, seasonality is an important thing. We know that peak season and off seasons are there. In the high season, they go for very high price, and that is only source for them to make some profit. And in the off season, they have to slash, they have to reduce the price. So seasonality will be affecting the demand patterns. In high season, demand will be very high, off season, demand will be less. And who are the consumers of airlines? And what do you mean by consumer? A consumer is actually who is doing the real consumption of the product. As far as airlines are concerned, there are different consumers. One major group is tourist. Another group is other kinds of travelers. We call it as, in general, we call it as passengers. So passengers consist of tourists and other types of travelers. Plus, other consumers of airlines are cargo senders. There are some people, those who want to send cargo from one place to another, and they send by air cargo. So when it is sent by air cargo, so naturally they consume the services of airlines. So those people are also part of airline industry. So tourists are actually a major market, major consumer group for the airlines. Other travelers are also there with a significant share in the airline demand. Among the tourists, leisure tourists, and that is the largest category. Leisure tourists means those who travel for the purpose of pleasure, recreation, visiting places, visiting friends and relatives, and sort of things. Other category is business traveler. There are, business, since globalization, the number of business travelers has been increasing. So many people are traveling from one place to another, especially the business executives, managers, and the top level employees. They travel to different places for participating in meetings, conferences, conventions, and also part of incentive tours, incentive holiday packages, and all. People are traveling. So these are all part of the business travel. The customers of airlines also include, as I said, those that include the people who send consignments like cargo. Mail transportation is another major activity. Mail transportation means postal services. Postal services is another important sector. They are also part of the airline consumption. They are also the consumers. So what is an airline product? The product is basically, they sell air transport services. They sell air transportation service between two or more cities at a certain price with specified purchase requirements and restrictions. They sell transportation service for cargo operators and consignees. The core product of airline is basically the transportation of passengers and cargo from one place to another. Ancillary products and complementary products are also there. In-flight services, it is in fact whatever the services we provide while the flight is flying, when the passengers are inside the aircraft, the services, the food services, the entertainment services, all sort of services that we provide while on board, we call it as in-flight services, and these can add value to the core product of airline. Commercial air transport operation is the most visible player. As we said, airline is part of commercial air transportation. It is basically an aircraft operation involving transport of passengers, cargo, or mail for remuneration or for hire. Airlines are organizations that undertake commercial air transportation. It can be generally classified into two, as scheduled air transportation and non-scheduled air transportation. Scheduled air transportation provide air transport services based on a fixed preset schedule or a timetable. This is usually published one. They may be publishing the schedule in their websites, through other media, through other sources. They'll be publishing the schedules. Whereas non-scheduled operations, the airlines, they conduct operations as and when required the services. They undertake services without any prefixed timetable. Such kind of operators, we call it as non-scheduled operators. Scheduled transportation, both international and domestic, are there. A scheduled international air service is a series of flights that possesses all the following certain kind of characteristics. Let us understand what are the characteristics. It passes through the airspace or the territory of more than one state. If an Indian airline is undertaking international air transport services, that means the airline from this country will be passing through the airspace of another country. It is performed by aircraft for the transport of passengers, mail or cargo for remuneration in such a manner that each flight is open to use by members of the public. The common people can access the services of scheduled transportation. It is operated so as to serve traffic between same two or more points, either in according to published timetable or with flights so regular or frequent that they constitute a recognizably systematic series. Non-scheduled airlines are actually the airlines that may not be having a published timetable. That will come to the details of it in later. The scheduled and non-scheduled airlines, apart from those, there are some other types of classification is also there. Major airline is one type of terminology quite often we come across in the air transport literature. Major airlines are actually the trunk airlines, and they concentrate on long distance routes, and they operate services between major cities within the country and from one country to outside as well. So for example, Air India is a major airline, Emirates is a major airline, Etihad is a major airline. So their focus of services is between two major cities. A regional airline is another kind of airline we have in the air transportation sector. There are certified airlines which provide regular scheduled passengers of cargo on particular regions. So they may not be having a national kind of service or international services. Commuter airlines are there. They are a kind of small airline. It's a kind of regional airline, in fact, and their route may be having of distance of 400 miles or less only. They are very small operators. They are a type of regional airlines actually. National airlines are there. National airlines usually operate services within the boundaries of a country, though they may fly on international routes as well. Flag carrier is a term that has been using since the beginning of airline industry. Flag carrier is usually the airline that is owned by the government. These are the airlines owned by the government and operate services mainly on international routes. For instance, as far as India is concerned, Air India is a flag carrier. Another terminology is full service carrier and low cost carrier, also called low cost airline. Full service carrier means they offer all the services that are supposed to be offered as part of international air transportation. They are also called full service airlines. They are also called legacy airlines. These airlines offer full basket services to passengers. The in-flight services will be complete, and their price will be high compared to other types of airlines. High in the sense they provide all the services. They provide all, the number of employees will be more, number of in-flight staff will be more. So naturally, their expenses will also be more. The service level will be much more than the low-cost carriers and others. Whereas the second category, low-cost carrier, it's also called, in short, we call it as LCC or low-cost airline, LCAs. These are actually, it is also called no-frills airlines, and they undertake services with low fare. So many airlines in India, we can identify full service carrier. Air India is a full service carrier, whereas SpiceJet is a low cost carrier. Their fare structure is low compared to full service carrier. So naturally, their service levels will also be lesser, and they don't provide free of cost the food and other services within the flight. So if you want to have food, we need to purchase. So that is how they manage their business. The features of LCC compared to FSC, they operate point-to-point services and usually on shorter haul routes. Point-to-point service means from one city to the next city, and they return back to the previous city. They don't offer some of the in-flight services like food and beverage. Usually, they use single type of aircraft and employ a less number of employees, staff, compared to full service carriers. Point-to-point short route services to get higher crew utilization and lower crew costs. Whereas LCC, it has continued the business, the features. It provide only basic in-flight service with no in-flight catering. They operate with minimal staff, operate with only one type of aircraft. This helps to have save training costs and also gain through cost savings for spare parts, maintenance, equipment, etc. They sell tickets more online, and that is why they save some commission from the selling. Nowadays, hybrid airlines are also there. Hybrid airlines actually stand in between low-cost carriers and full-service carriers. They have the characteristics mix of both. They may have better in-flight services, but may not be up to the full-service carriers. So that kind of airlines, we call it as hybrid carriers. So in the Asian countries, there are many new airlines coming up as hybridization. That is a kind of hybridization of business models in the airline sector. So what kind of differences we can identify between LCC and FSC, between low-cost carrier and full-service carrier? Low-cost carrier is basically a simple brand, whereas full-service carrier is a complex brand. They provide services for low fare, whereas full-service carriers will be following service classes and fare classes. So in a full-service carrier, there will be business class, there can be first class and economy class. So 2 or 3 kinds of classes are there. But in the case of LCC, there is no difference, only one type of class of service. And airline and call center booking is, the dominant mode of booking of the seats of the LCCs, whereas full service carrier will be providing all sort of channels for selling their tickets. They have a very simple fare structure, LCCs, whereas full service carriers have multiple products and they may focus on very complex fare structure. Different types of fares are offered by the full service carriers. LCCs focus on secondary airports with multiple bases, whereas full service carriers will be having hubs, and the focus will be at a hub airport, and from there they undertake the services. In the case of low-cost carrier, aircraft utilization is very high, whereas full service carrier aircraft utilization is lower comparatively. There is no interlining agreements, codeshare agreements by the LCC carriers, whereas full service carriers have code-sharing, interlining agreements, and bilateral and multilateral alliances are possible. We will come to we'll pass through the alliances later. LCC offer a basic transportation or LC's ancillary extra. If you want to have those services, we need to pay for that. Whereas full service carriers, they have a complex and integrated or a multiple bundled product system they offer. The focus of low-cost carriers is short haul, whereas full service carriers, they focus on short haul, long haul, as well as on medium haul, and it undertakes services on multi-sector routes as well. Very complex fleet structure, and route type structure is also complex. That is a feature of full service carrier. Non-scheduled airlines, they perform commercial air transport services without a prefixed or a published timetable. A charter flight is a non-scheduled operation using a chartered aircraft. The passenger charter flights are there, cargo charter flights are there, combined passenger cargo flights are there. Non-scheduled, non-charter flights for the carriage of individually ticketed or individually available traffic is also there at times. On-demand taxi services is also available. As I said earlier, alliance is very important. Full service carriers will be having alliances. For example, Air India, they are part of Star Alliance. These kind of alliances give some kind of advantages for the airlines. The focus area of alliance is actually they share information technology facilities for the purpose of reservation, scheduling, fleet planning, crew planning, etc. They share the IT services. Pooling of air services is done by within the alliances. These alliances are formed by a number of airlines. They form this is a kind of cooperation between the airlines in order to help each other, so that they can make lot of advantages by this. They pool the services between 2 or more airlines, which can help to have a wider choice of frequencies and to maximize load factors. Pooling of aircraft spare equipment is also possible. The purchasing of aircraft and equipment is also having a kind of understanding. Developing of regional airline training centers so that every airline, all the airlines within the alliance can utilize the services of those training centers. Agreements for aircraft and engine overhaul and maintenance is also there by the airlines involved within the alliances. Independent fuel service companies, they may be establishing so that they can maintain stable fuel supply. So that advantage also can be there for the partners in the airline alliances. Whereas passengers will be getting some benefit. For example, if we are booking tickets through an airline which is part of an alliance, then you can have a wider, you can travel on a wider area. Global access through code share and schedule harmonization is possible for the passengers with the help of alliances. Seamless travel through coordinated schedules, simplified pricing, interline e-ticketing possibility, through check-in baggage, and seating of through check-in seating is also possible. Terminal co-location and one point of service contact is there in the case. These are the benefits passengers can be enjoyed by being booking if it's a seat that is part of an alliance. Recognition through frequent flyer schemes of airlines is also possible. Launch access and priority handling and boarding is also possible if you are booking a ticket with an airline that is part of an airline alliance. Another benefit is value through lower fares, simplified round the world fares, and all these are possible with the help of airline alliances.